Thank you all. Please be seated. Welcome to this meeting of Oxford City Council. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Members, please make sure your phone is either turned off or silent, and if it rings, then you will be donating to the Lord Mayor's charity. You may also leave and come back at any time, but please indicate to the clerk if leaving completely. I also anticipate we will go for a break at around 6:30. Item 1, apologies for absence. Can I ask the Committee and Member Services Manager to announce any apologies that have been received ahead of this meeting?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Diggins, Douglas, Dunn, Thomas and Walcott, and I know Councillor Linda Smith will be late.
Item 2, members, do you have any declarations? Oh yeah. Is there anyone else in the room who knows of any other apologies tonight?
Lord Mayor, Councillor Ros Smith and Councillor Altaf Khan are on the same bus, and Ros has just advised that there's some form of incident that is holding all traffic up, so it may well be that other councillors are in the same situation and are liable to be significantly delayed.
Thank you. Councillor Susan.
I've had a similar message from Councillor Choman Conga, who may well be on the same bus, saying he's also stuck in traffic on the bus. So,
Councillor Edward Mundy.
Yeah, I think that same bus has got Councillors Raymond, Coyne and Corai as well. No, actually Corai's coming from Whitney, so he's not on the same bus.
Councillor Louise Upton.
And Councillor Coyne is running late as well, but she is coming.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Aziz.
Yeah, Councillor Rahman is not on the same bus, but he's stuck in traffic and making his way in.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so item 2 is members. Do you have any declarations of interest relating to business in today's agenda? Yes, please.
There are questions under item 18 on the agenda relating to the negotiations between Oxford City Council and the Oxford District Federation of Allotment Associations to do with allotment leases. This declaration is not because I'm an allotment holder, many of us are, but because I am a chair of an allotment association closely engaged with that negotiation. I have no personal interest, and I think I can stay in the room while the question is answered.
Thank you. Members, if any subsequent interests become apparent, please raise it at the relevant item. Moving on to item 3, which is minutes. Members, we are asked to approve the minutes from the meetings held on Monday the 17th of July 2023. I propose these minutes are an accurate record. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fry. Are the minutes approved? Thank you. The minutes have been approved. The next item is appointments to committees. Within the report, there are 2 amendments to the committees. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Yes, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I propose a report which will appoint Councillor James Fry to replace Councillor Paula Dunn on the Scrutiny Committee and Councillor Dr Chris Smoten to replace Councillor Andrew Gant on the General Purposes Licensing Committee and any subsequent subcommittees.
I second.
Thank you. We now come to item 5, announcements. Okay, so I've been going to quite a lot of events, as you may be following me. One of them was reducing the risk. So they ensure the safety of adults and children vulnerable to domestic abuse, as well as giving them empowerment. So if anyone is worried or is a victim of domestic abuse, the local helpline is 0800 731 0055. And I was really welcomed also at the Oxford Hub. It's the opening of a new community hub at Wingdale Primary School in Blackpool East, so that was very nice as well. Over to you. Any more announcements, Sheriff? Oh, yeah?
Nothing from me, Lord Mayor.
Yes, please.
I noticed I'm not on your sheet, but I just wanted to remind members that the wonderful exhibition of some of the documents from the archives are in the assembly rooms, so that during the interval you can go along and see them. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Leader of the Council, Chica's, yeah?
No announcements from me. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Chief? No, Lord Mayor. Chief Finance Officer? No, Lord Mayor. Monitoring Officers? City Rector?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. This is a sort of announcement, as many will be aware, across schools and places of worship in this week. Items are being collected in thanksgiving for harvest and also to be shared with food banks and community larders across the city, which is all very exciting. And I was reminded of a very ancient religious text in the book of Deuteronomy, when that slightly impoverished agricultural community was reminded not to reap to the edge of the fields. Love that. Not to reap to the edge of the fields, because that means that the poor can come round behind and glean and collect their own. And if we've got olive trees, we're only allowed to beat them once, because that will then leave olives for the poor to collect, etc. And just the idea, as is exemplified by these excellent schools and other places, that we don't have to keep everything ourselves and there is room to share. I know that you wonderful people all know that really well, but at harvest time, I'm always really encouraged. One or two may remember the great primary school hymn, Cauliflower's Fluffy, but I thought we probably won't sing that this evening. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. For avoidance of doubt, can we confirm that Council approves item 4? Thank you. I now move to item 6, which is public addresses and questions that relate to matters for decisions at this meeting. I can confirm we have not received any ahead of this meeting. We now come to the first recommendation from Cabinet. Councillor Linda Smith is running late, and we will have to come back to this item, I think.
That accounts for the next 3 reports, I think, Lord Mayor. Sorry if I may. So, shall we try? And if necessary, you can come back and I will move the reports.
Thank you very much. We now come to the next item. Please note Appendix B of this item is exempt. And if you want to discuss anything relating, we're talking about park and ride, combined parking and the bus ticket changes, item 10. We now come to the next item. Please note Appendix B of this item is exempt. And if you want to discuss anything relating to this, please let me know and we will vote to go into closed session. Councillor Ed Turner, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance and Asset Management, can you move the report and Cabinet's recommendations?
Councillor Upton was hoping to, if that's all right. Yeah.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, this is about what we charge for our combined tickets from the Park and Ride. So in April, we switched to a permanent joint ticketing arrangement, because previously, even though we invented Park and Rides in the 1970s, we always had separate tickets for parking and for riding. But now we are going to have, we have a single ticket for Park and Ride. It started with a trial price, which was very, very low. And we are proposing that we're going to stick with that now through until, it was fixed at that point up until October, to just like now, but we're going to stick with that until the normal budget setting round in April. So it is still £4 to park and to ride for an adult and up to 3 children, and £5 for 2 adults and up to 3 children. So I think I just would like you all to approve that continuation of the status quo effectively.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Susan Bowen, thank you. Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Snowden?
Thank you. In the event that we do indeed go for option one, no price change either now or committed for April 24, that commitment only still applies for the next 6 months. Can you speak at all to your intentions after those 6 months are up?
Councillor Kerr?
Yeah, I suppose my comment is just that as per one of the Labour motions today, we do need to help discourage car usage, and in an era when we are cutting so many frontline services, keeping the price so low seems a little problematic. But I accept it is only for the next 6 months, and there will be a review in April, following the answer to Chris's question.
Councillor Turner?
Louise, Lord Mayor may have some other reflections on this, but I mean, if I can offer a couple. I mean, one is that, to be clear, have we not taken the steps that we did do in relation to park and rides, and we wouldn't have had any buses, and then that would have led to, I think, significantly more congestion, significantly less sustainable transport options. This was a necessary measure to make sure that the park and rides had a future, and I think the consequences of the network simply going pop don't really bear thinking about. Louise may have something to add, but do you mind if I say a comment on Chris's question? Yeah, I mean, this of course has to be part of the conversation with the county council and the bus companies, and secondly, it's going to be an issue inevitably, which is of some budget sensitivity. But of course, we as a council like to come together and decide our budgets, and then we also take comment from the public and from scrutiny and so on. So hopefully that helps about the process.
Yes, Councillor Upton?
Yeah, just to essentially repeat what Ed just said, it's going to be a difficult conversation when we come to the budget time, and we will be doing this in conjunction with county and the bus companies, because I think it is really important that we have our prices set at the same as the county council, because we don't want a bizarre situation where people are driving around the ring road to get to a cheaper park and ride.
Okay, so I will put the decision to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. Now, Councillor Linda Smith has joined us. We will return to item 7. So, we now come to the recommendation from Cabinet. Councillor Linda Smith, Cabinet Member for Housing. Can you move the report and Cabinet's recommendation?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is item 7, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, and my apologies for the lateness, and thank you for waiting for me. I'm pleased to recommend the approval of this report to Council. This programme is an excellent example of local government and the NHS working together to improve services and produce better outcomes for people. This work aims to prevent hospital patients who are experiencing homelessness being discharged back onto the street, and to support their health care and housing needs in the community to prevent readmission to hospital where it can at all possibly be avoided. The scheme is being evaluated by King's College London, a very good college, if I may say so, and we know that the work is already paying off in terms of cost savings across the system. And most importantly for the individuals affected, a reduction in delayed discharges from hospital and a reduction in presentations at A&E, with more planned visits to outpatient departments. So that's good news for them. I'm pleased to see the work here in Oxfordshire has been rated as a national exemplar for co-production and involvement of people with lived experience of homelessness. And it's something that we try very hard to promote in the homelessness services that we commission here at the Council. The Oxfordshire Out of Hospital Care model is funded 100% from sources external to our council, and this report provides for the continuation of the scheme until March 2024, and then for a further 5 years, as long as funding continues to be available. So please support these recommendations so all that good work can continue.
Thank you very much. I understand Councillor Hayes would like to declare an interest.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'm Chief Executive of a charity which provides out-of-hospital care support and is part of this system and receives funding as part of this.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a seconder? Is it?
I was just... Sorry, Lord Mayor. I was, for the sake of propriety, going to declare that I'm a trustee of the same charity. However, this isn't a paid role. And the charity is not... There is no specific allocation to the charity in this report. So I take it that means I can stay. But if officers believe otherwise, then I will, of course, leave the room.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mike Rowley. Is it possible if you can just, to avoid any confusion, just to step up for this item? Thank you. Okay, so now we come to, can we have a seconder? Councillor Susan Brown, thank you. Are there any other speakers for this item? Okay, I will put the decision to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. We now come to the next Cabinet recommendation. Councillor Linda Smith, Cabinet Member for Housing. Can you move the report and Cabinet's recommendations?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This report seeks the approval of Council for the expansion of our Housing First programme following a successful bid for government funds. Housing First is an internationally evidenced approach to solving homelessness, which has been proven to help people with multiple and complex needs maintain a tenancy and stay off the streets. It separates an individual's housing needs from their support needs through providing a secure and stable home for as long as they need it. Bespoke support is made available, which the person is able to engage with on their own terms, but the support and the accommodation are not linked. This is very different from the more traditional solutions to homelessness for people in this situation, where they might be expected to remain in a hostel until they are judged to be capable of living independently. Housing First has been shown to work, and it's something this Labour administration is committed to expanding here in Oxford to help end homelessness. It's a key element of our new housing and homelessness strategy, and we currently work with St Mungo's and A2 Dominion to provide support to tenants in 21 Housing First properties. There are another 5 properties currently coming online, and we anticipate having a total of 35 clients by the end of this financial year. This report covers a further expansion of our Housing First scheme. We will use government grant to subsidise the purchase of 12 new properties, and we will use 5 properties we already own to give us 17 more Housing First properties. Government grant will also cover the provision of the bespoke support until 2027. Housing First is a long-term solution to homelessness, but that means long-term funding is necessary. The latest government grant is welcome and we will put it to excellent use, but it is another grant which we have had to bid for competitively and which is relatively short-term. What councils like us really need in order to solve homelessness for good is better certainty around funding and a long-term commitment from the UK government to support us in this work. It's something I know the new Shadow Secretary of State, Angela Rayner, understands, and it's just one more reason why we need a Labour government as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Can we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Turner. Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Smoten?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can you give Council some details relating to the units that are transferred from existing stock, and in particular, what were their previous uses, and what are your criteria or your balancing test for determining the release from those uses into the Housing First pool?
I can't at this stage, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, it's not been decided what the units are, but it will be a decision based on what current housing needs are across the city and the units that become available at the time that they are needed. But I'm happy to keep you updated as those units are transferred.
Are there any other speakers? Okay, is the report agreed? I will put the decision to the vote. So those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. Okay, we're going to move on to the Local Authority Housing Fund because item 12, because Councillor Cherry Makonge isn't here yet. Please note that Appendix 3 of this item is exempt, and if you want to discuss anything relating to this, please let me know and we will vote to go into closed session. Councillor Linda Smith, Cabinet Member for Housing, can you move this report and Cabinet's recommendations?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm asking for support from Council for us to enter into this agreement with DLUC to utilise grant funding from the Local Authority Housing Fund Round 2 to support our purchase of 4 new affordable homes for Oxford. The government funding equates to over 40% of the cost of the properties, and the remainder will come from our housing revenue account. 3 of the properties will at first be used to provide a home for Afghan families who have arrived in the UK under government refugee resettlement schemes and are currently accommodated in the bridging hotels. The 4th property will be used as temporary accommodation for any households in housing need. This funding follows on from round 1 of the Local Authority Housing Fund, which councillors will remember we also benefited from. Funding from round 1 is being used by this council to purchase 6 properties to provide homes for Ukrainian and Afghan refugees. And when I brought that report to Scrutiny Committee and to this council, I remember members asking for us to do more, especially for Afghan families. So I'm pleased to now lay this report before council, which carries on with that same work, takes it forward, and I hope it will have support this evening.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Turner, thank you very much. Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Mills?
We support the purchase of these properties for this purpose and the earlier purchases of properties for Afghan and Ukrainians to use. Just wondered whether the Cabinet member has or intends to communicate the need for an extension of such grant programmes for refugees of other backgrounds as well, beyond for refugees of other backgrounds and not just for Afghan and Ukrainian refugees, which have been these grant schemes have been targeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we continue to communicate the need for more government support for affordable homes for people that need them in our city from all backgrounds. But as these schemes become available, which are targeted at specific groups, we will do our best to take part in them.
Thank you. Can I have Councillor Roll?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just had a question about whether you could explain the reason for splitting the 3 for Afghan families and 1 for wider housing need, recognising that this is a very unpleasant decision having to choose between 2 very important needs, but I just wondered how we made that decision.
Yeah, I believe that decision was made in conjunction with DLUC based on their assessment of needs for homes for these cohorts in Oxford, but I'm happy to follow that up and write to you to confirm that with more detail.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers for this item? Okay, I will put this decision to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. So we're going back to item 9, the Lees Pool and Leisure Centre. We now come to the Lees Pool and Leisure Centre. Councillor Chowie Makonge, Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parks. Can you move the report and Cabinet's recommendations?
Thank you, Your Lord Mayor. And I do apologize for being late. Otherwise, I was watching you on my way here.
Dedication.
Yes. And I know Councillor Brown did give my apologies. Thank you very much. I've got some good news to present to you members, and hopefully you approve this report. For some time now, we have been looking at how we can help our youths in our city, and this is a good outcome where we have secured the funding to provide the youth hub in the Lees Pools and Leisure Centre. This is one of the work that we did in partnership with the County Council, so I want to thank the County Council for the work on this and our officers. And just to add on that, the work that is going to take place there is as a result of the consultation from the youths themselves, and we have worked in partnership with them actually to develop what they want to see, and of course the timetable. So I'll ask you both members to support this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Susan Brown. Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Ross Smith.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I do apologise for being late. There's been an incident apparently, and it's held up a lot of traffic coming from the east. I think this is a good thing to happen for the Lees area. It's great that we found some underutilised
Sorry, we can't hear you.
I'll try and lean into the microphone. Is that better? Right, okay, thank you. Sorry, I'll move along a bit. This thing. I think this is a good thing, and it's really good to see the partnership working with Oxfordshire County Council. What I wanted to ask, it's quite a lot of money, in fact, which is great. I mean, over £1 million going into the capital programme, and revenue, nearly, well, over 200,000 going in as well. I just wondered who was going to be monitoring the use of the project and the outcomes of the project. What was good, what was bad. I just wondered if it's going to be County Council or the City Council or a bit of both. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Saj Malik.
Thank you. Yeah, this is very welcoming. My question is now, after when this was coming in the news and all this was kind of combined, and then there was Liz Brighouse pictures and so on, the quotation. So after the Labour group walking out of the administration of the County Council, does this report have any effect on the funding or anything, or is it still a done deal, so you're going to deliver this project?
Councillor, would you like to respond?
Thank you very much. I'll start with Councillor Saj Maliki. Questions? Yes, it's a done deal. We have already secured the funding. Councillor Ross Smith, thank you very much for your question. The City Council is going to monitor the project. Actually, we are responsible to employ 4 coordinators, 4 employees and 1 coordinator. So we are effectively going to monitor and develop the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Farweather.
Could I ask the Cabinet Member if the recurrent amount indicated, which seems quite a large sum of money, is largely salaries for youth workers? And if so, why is so much money being spent here in one place rather than being used around the city in other community centres in deprived areas?
And Councillor Morris. Okay, any other speakers? Thank you. Councillor Chowie Makonge, if you'd like to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Farweather. There are two bits in this grant, and actually it's a grant, and that's a condition of the grant. So we have got about 1.1 million for the 1.12 million for the capital, which means we have to repurpose the lease to construct what is in the report. And then we have got the revenue of 223,907, and that is for employing 4 care work employees and 1 coordinator for a year. But we are working so hard that this project can actually continue in perpetuity.
Yeah. Okay, so is the report agreed? Okay, I will put the decision to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. We already have taken item 10, so we will move to item 11, delivery of burial space. So we come now to the delivery of burial space. Please note appendixes 2, 4 and 6 of this item are exempt. And if you want to discuss anything relating, Councillor Choe Makonge, Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parks, can you move the report and Cabinet's recommendations?
Thank you very much, Your Lord Mayor. Members, you may be aware that in Oxford we are running out of burial spaces. I know my colleagues before me have worked so hard to find a new burial space. Actually, we have searched around our district councils. We couldn't find a suitable space, but finally we have found one. The land that we own, that is in Oxford Road towards Ospath. We have worked extensively to carry out the work on this space. Basically, the groundwork is suitable for the burial space, and actually we are not calling it burial space, we're calling it burial meadow, because it is going to be a green space where local residents and those in neighboring districts can have some activities and working in there. We have done extensively in terms of consultation, and we have reached a stage whereby we can submit a planning application if you approve this report tonight. I would also mention that during our consultation, 91% of our residents actually were in favor of this burial site. I'm so happy today that I can present this report, and hopefully you are going to approve a capital budget of 2.4 million to deliver for the first phase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Louise Upton, thank you. Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Al-Dawfran.
Thank you. Councillor Choe, I asked a number of questions at the scrutiny committee, and I'm afraid some of questions are not still answered, and I repeat only 2 questions. As you said, worked hard, and yes, it's very much needed project to be delivered for Oxford, and we fully behind the project, but the technicality and specific questions of delivering this, can you confirm the lease, which 2 documents, which I already pointed out, the one says 40 years, one says 45 years, as the previously people have the lease of 50 or 99 years, and the second, as sensitivity of the site, there are number of restrictions. And would you consider or say here on the record that this will be delivered for all the communities from all the backgrounds and for their needs as it was delivered at the Botley Cemetery? Thank you.
Can we have Councillor Miles, please?
Thank you. In paragraph 39, it refers to the new site being accessible by many travel modes, and it refers to disabled parking and parking options, including bus information. Will there be any cycle parking provided, please? Thank you.
Can we have Councillor Saj Malik?
Mine is comment rather than a question. I think it's a brilliant report, and this scheme started, I remember, some years ago when Bob Price was a leader and Colin Cook was there. So those two people, that's how long it takes to deliver a project. And as the Botley Cemetery is rapidly running out, so the residents was worried about. So I like to thank the officers and also the administration to get this thing done. Technicality, you can use it. I'll be lucky to live another 45 years if I can, but so hopefully that will last long. And I think as the local plan will go and the other site will be identified in due course. But that report also shows how long it takes to deliver a project and how far ahead you think about it. So well done.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cherry Makonde, would you like to answer?
Thank you, Councillor Malik, for those wise words. We really appreciate. Councillor Miles, yes, I can confirm that there will be cycle parking. Councillor Ataf, yes, I can confirm that the discussion on what you have said, restrictions, are still ongoing, but we are positive, and the other part has indicated that we will reach agreement. So we are moving on to this stage because we are confident, as they have indicated, that this will be delivered. In terms of 45 years, that's just a lifespan of the burial spaces. Otherwise, residents and everyone will have access in perpetuity. It's the land that we own, and we don't lease it to anybody. Thank you.
Is there any other speakers who have not spoken? Okay, Councillor Aldaf.
Yeah, thank you. I think you misunderstood my second point. The lifespans, yes, is 45, you confirm. My second point is not relating to the documents or the answer you gave it to me. Yes, I understand that will get to the reach. I am asking about the specific of the burial sensitivities, because in the report it says you can have only the wood headstone type or the type of the burial, which is taking place in cemetery in Botley now, and it'll be restriction for some communities, and especially the Muslim communities, if that site is a sensitivity. I'm not talking about the other matters you said, which are the confidential items. We have discussed those in length at scrutiny. So I'm asking about the specific type of burial. Would that be allowed same as in Botley? This is my question.
Thank you for your question. Now I understand your question fully. What we're asking at the moment, it will be in the detailed planning application. But I can confirm we have reached where we have reached as a result of consultation with different faith groups. So it will be in the details, and the other part has indicated some compromise. So I can't go in what is yet to be submitted, but I can accept that that will be detailed planning application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will put the decision to the vote. Those in favour? Those not? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. Okay, so we have already taken item 12, so we will move to item 13. We now come to Northfield Hostel site. Please note, Appendix 1 of this item 13 is exempt. And if you want to discuss anything relating to this, please let me know, and we will vote to go into a closed session. Councillor Linda Smith, Cabinet Member for Housing, can you move the report and Cabinet's recommendations?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Oxford needs homes, and so I'm pleased to bring forward this report which seeks approval from Council to deliver a further 10 affordable homes at the Northfield Hostel site on Sandy Lane West in Littlemore. The Council is already progressing the development of 51 affordable homes on the site of the former boarding house, which we purchased from the County Council, and the County Council is now making a further plot of land available to us. This is adjacent to our existing development site and was formerly a small sports facility used by the pupils at the Northfield School who boarded there. This presents an opportunity for us to develop the sites together, resulting in an all-affordable scheme of 61 homes, which will be supported by Homes England grant. Please support the recommendation to give project approval to purchase this land, enter into build contracts, and allocate the necessary HRA capital budget so that this council can continue making progress towards our ambition of delivering 1,600 new affordable homes by 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ed Turner. Is there any other questions? Okay, if we can move to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. Okay, item 14. We now come to Blackbird Leys Development Project. Please note appendices 4, 5, 6 and 7 of this item are exempt. So once again, if you want to discuss anything relating to this, please let me know and we will vote to go into a closed session.
Lord Mayor, I do wish to raise questions on the confidential matters, with apologies to the people in the public gallery. I'm afraid I do have questions on those topics.
Okay, I understand that members wish to discuss the exempt information, and it will therefore be necessary for Council to pass a resolution to exclude the press and public from the meeting. I propose Council pass a resolution to exclude the press and public from the meeting during consideration of the exempt appendices of this agenda item on the grounds that the discussion would involve the disclosure of exempt information as described in specific paragraphs of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. But before we do that and proceed, Councillor Ed Turner, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance and Asset Management, can you move the report and Cabinet's recommendations?
Okay, sorry, Linda and I were sort of swapping over who was going to do this one. The truth is we're both really excited about it, actually. And there's something, I don't know if it's just the weather, but it feels like there's something slightly flat about our chamber this afternoon. We've just been rattling through millions of pounds worth of investment in affordable housing. You know, the other week I had someone come up to me talking about how their family was about to move into a council house that they really needed. It was quite an emotional conversation. We've been in touch for a long time. Many of us have had those conversations. Many of us know the difference that it makes to people's lives when they do actually move into a new property. Really anyone in Oxford who's able to access social housing is going to have a really substantial housing need that's often associated with a lot of personal unhappiness for themselves, for members of their family, for those close to them. And the truth is, Lord Mayor, we as an authority, and I thank our officers terrifically for this, are pulling out all of the stops to get more homes built in Oxford. And each time we do that, it's a statistic on our pages here today, but it's also making a huge difference to families in our city. Please look beyond the statistics towards the difference that it makes. On this, the reason this recommendation is here before us is because it will, there's a recommendation, if I just, excuse me, just get the right the right recommendation here, to add 1.5 million of Section 106 affordable housing funds, which are not currently delegated to the head of planning, to phase 2 of the regen. Taking a step back, there's a lot more in this report, but essentially what we've had to do is work through the viable plans with our partners at Peabody for Blackbird Leys regen. It's going to be fantastic for the estate. It's going to bring much needed affordable housing, in particular social rented housing. It's going to bring improved retail. It's going to bring a new community centre. It's really going to make a terrific difference to the estate. It's a difficult time to be involved in these sort of projects. Build costs are ticking up. That's clearly a challenging environment. Officers, and I'd really like to pay tribute to Carolyn and Carolina in this, as well as Tom Bridgman, have worked really hard to see this over the line. We're not quite there yet, as the report explains, but we're in a very strong position to see all of this project progress. We also, of course, now got the benefit of planning permission. So Linda may have something to add in the public session. I thank Chris Moten for giving us advance warning of his question, which we'll deal with in the confidential session. But let's just not nod this one through. Let's, if we can, actually support it, with enthusiasm. This is going to be really, really good for people in Oxford, and particularly for Blackbird Leys.
So to repeat the statement I made earlier, I propose the Council pass a resolution to exclude the press and public from the meeting during consideration of the exempt appendices of this agenda item on the grounds that the discussion would involve the disclosure of exempt information as described in specific paragraphs of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Is there a seconder? Councillor Linda Smith, thank you. Is the resolution agreed? Thank you. The recommendation has been approved and the meeting will now enter a closed session.
The two people sat in the public gallery are in fact trainee solicitors that work in the legal services department.
those watching the live stream, welcome back to item To those watching the live stream, welcome back to item 14. Members, I will put the decision to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. The next item is the Constitution amendments and the changes to responsibility of functions. Councillor Susan Brown, can you introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Yes, Lord Mayor. I think there'll probably be a little less debate around this particular item. So can I move the report, which is basically changing some job titles in the Constitution? I move.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Turner. Are there any other speakers for this item? We will move to a vote. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. The next item is questions for Cabinet minutes. Members, this item is restricted to 15 minutes. Item 16A, do any members have any questions relating to the minutes from the 9th of August? Item 16B, do any members have any questions relating to the minutes from the 13th of September? Councillor Miles?
Thank you very much. This is related to item 56 around the private rented sector regulation and the consultation on that. So I support the proposed public consultation on the draft policies, which is related to whether an applicant is fit and proper to hold an HMO or selective licence. But really, what I want to just clarify is, and would like to see whether it's feasible, is whether we can bring the legal ownership of the property under the fit and an assessment of fit and proper criteria pointed at like the legal owner and not just the holder of the HMO or the selective licence. And the reason for this is that, for instance, just to give you an example, if you're a Russian oligarch who happens to be the owner of a property in Oxford who has a HMO or selective licence which is held in the name of an agent, then the agent may meet the fit and proper test, but the ultimate owner doesn't. And so what really concerns me is that legal owners of property in Oxford are currently benefiting from renting properties to residents in our city, and these legal owners are not fit and proper, even if the HMO licence holder or selective licence holder is. So, essentially, what can we do to ensure that the ultimate owners of property who are not fit and proper are not benefiting from receiving rent from residents in our city? Is that something that can be explored and relates to this consultation? Thank you.
Councillor Linda Smith, would you like to reply?
I don't believe that's possible, but I'm happy to go away and get some more information from somebody a lot more legally qualified than I am and pass that information on to you.
I take it the minutes are agreed? Okay? Thank you. We now come to questions on notice from members of council. I will begin with the questions for the Leader of the Council. Councillor Roll, do you have a supplementary question regarding Thames Water? I see you nodding.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wondered whether you would be open to following up with Thames Water on the issue that occurred at Reimers Lane, as per the question.
I mean, I am, but it would be helpful to understand exactly what explicitly you wanted me to raise, and then I'm very happy to. I have no doubt that we will continue to have extensive correspondence with Thames Water because we need to. Thank you.
Is anybody able to turn off Amar's mic up there, Edward? Okay, Councillor Muddyman, do you have a supplementary question regarding the Botley Road roadworks? No. Okay, now questions for the lead member for Finance and Asset Management. Councillor Gant, I see is not here. Would have asked him if he had a supplementary. So we're moving on. Councillor Pegg, do you have a supplementary question regarding council buildings being affected by RUC?
Yes, just to ask what the timeline is for that RUC assessment.
I can't tell the council exactly. I'll go and check, but it's quick. They're looking very, very actively. But I can revert to the councillor if that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary question regarding Bramwell Place? No. Now I shall take the questions for Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parks. Councillor Miles, do you have a supplementary to either of your two questions to the Cabinet Member?
Yes, I do. For the second one, on the play park for Broad Street, please. Providing a welcoming city centre space for children is important to become a child-friendly city and also promote child rights and wellbeing in line with the UN Convention on Rights of the Child, which sets out the principle that governments respect, protect and fulfil the right to play of all children. And it also brings commercial benefits so that people with children will see it as a welcoming destination to spend their money and time. So with this in mind, since there are no children's public play areas within 1 kilometre of Broad Street, as you engage with the County Council on opportunities to reprioritise the road space in Broad Street, will you be requesting that a children's play area is included in the design options for the public realm improvements? And secondly, will you be advocating that they take meaningful engagement with children in the redesign? Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you alluded to, that's a responsibility of the council, but of course we work in partnership and try to find the resolution, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross Smith, do you have a supplementary to any of the three questions to the Cabinet Members?
Yes, I do. Would you like me to take them in order, one by one?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So, I believe it's CM2. This is about Bury Knoll House that the City Council owns. Thank you for the reply. Am I to take from the reply that because it's going to require budget approval, planning and building consent, that we won't see any improvements until after this winter and possibly not until late of next year? Is that correct?
I am afraid I can't give the timeline. I just take the response as is written, but if I find more information when I talk to the officers, I'll come back to you.
And the next question.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your response. But I don't feel I've had the question answered at the end there. Does the Cabinet Member have confidence in fusion?
I am sorry, as you know, we are in the process of course, for looking at the future provision. So I definitely can't answer that question. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes, I'm sorry, if I could. Thank you. Thank you for your answer, which I find a little puzzling, to say the least. You've mentioned the size of the increase for the rents and put it down to a 3.3% increase over 9 years. And yet we had no inflation, or certainly less than 1%, 0.1%, for many of those 9 years. So in fact, actually, I still believe that the 29.5% rise that has been proposed, with further pressure inflation rises thereafter on these associations, is not justified, and I'm surprised that you think it is. More to be, okay, if you looked at the inflation rates and so forth, I think more fair and justified would be a 10% or even 11% rise in rates for these associations. Does the Cabinet member agree with me?
Thanks, Rose. Again, we are still in negotiations, and as you know, with ODFAA. But I would say and confirm and put it on record that we are one of the more lenient council, and we are the lowest that are charging the rent. I do take into consideration what you have just said, and I can again say to you, apart from being lenient, because you know our rents goes back to the allotment associations actually. So in terms of clarification, I'll come back to you, but I'll put it on record that we are the lowest council that charges rent to the allotments. Thank you.
Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary to either of your two questions for the Cabinet member? No. Thank you. Councillor Morris, do you have a supplementary to either of your three questions for the Cabinet member?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. I just wondered with the first question, I'm pleased that everyone is working in collaboration to tackle this immense problem, but do you know when the results of this collaboration will be published?
We have just started the second round of negotiations, so I can't give the timeline, I'm afraid.
Okay, and the second question, as I understand it, the leases for allotment associations were due to be renewed in 2021, and as I understand it, the City Council want to increase rents by 25%, which we've just been hearing about, but also, again, as I understand it, you're trying to hand over responsibility of allotment perimeter fences, the care, maintenance and repair of allotment perimeter fences to allotment associations. This is clearly unreasonable given the scale of such a job in terms of time, expertise and cost. I mean, I just wonder whether that is viable or sustainable or fair.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. As I alluded to earlier, we have started second round of negotiations, and the meetings will be happening soon that will facilitate those discussions are ongoing. I have to go and look at what the ODFA are proposing and actually what our officers are saying. Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Yes, well, the third question, I've lost it now, seems to imply that it's a continuation of existing position with the leases and that there is not a change in obligation. But am I mistaken in thinking that allotment associations are already obligated to repair and maintain their perimeter fences, or have I got that wrong? It just seems a bit unreasonable, given that most all the allotment associations are run by volunteers on very limited budgets.
I mean, first of all, let me just assure you that I and my colleagues are keen to have this concluded as soon as possible. Obviously, the negotiations have reached an impasse, and we have to understand as to why. Our officers obviously have explained in detail that what we need to do, and we have also listened actually, and we are listening from what ODFAA are saying. So, like I've said previously, and I'm saying it again, we have started the second round of negotiations because this is the outcome that came out from the previous meetings. So we are listening to have a short second chance negotiation on this. Thank you.
Next are the questions for the Cabinet Member for Planning and Healthier Communities. Councillor Miles, do you have any supplementary questions regarding the multi-criteria assessment tool? No. Councillor Smoten, do you have a supplementary question regarding the planning enforcement?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Landau Mills, do you have a supplementary question regarding the B4044 cycle path?
No, sir, no.
Next are the questions for the Cabinet Member for Citizen-Focused Services. Councillor Miles, do you have a supplementary to either of your two questions to the Cabinet Member?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
Just to clarify with regards to the men's and women's ladies' toilets outside on Blue Ball Street, when you refer to the fact that this work is going to consider the business case for further investment to improve the assets, does that mean refurbishing the public toilets, so there's additional toilet capacity for the general public, or does it mean repurposing them for alternative purposes? And if so, what purposes are being considered? Thank you.
I take the answer to mean it'll be for toilets in the first instance. Now, obviously, if that was found to be impractical, I wouldn't rule out using that space for something else, but that's not the primary purpose.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Smoten, do you have... Oh, sorry, there's one more, yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, thank you. So with regards to my question on deep cleaning of streets, just wanted to clarify how many deep cleans have been undertaken outside the immediate city centre over the last year, and also if there is a need for a deep clean resulting from poor waste management of a specific premises, so like a HMO for instance, or a business, whether or not any fines are routinely levied or could be levied to cover the cost to the council of that deep clean. Thank you.
Well, they're both very good questions, and it would be, frankly, an Encyclopedia Britannica of local government to be able to give you an answer on the spur of the moment. So I'm very happy to come back to you with answers both on the extent of deep cleaning and whether or not we would take enforcement action in principle, not on specific cases, but in principle against anybody that was leaving waste and causing pollution and so on and so forth. So I'll have to get back to you, Councillor Miles, on that.
Councillor Smoten, do you have a supplementary question regarding annual fly tipping?
Yes, you mentioned giving guidance to Brooks students specifically about how to dispose of bulky waste at the end of a tenancy. Does that guidance offer them an option beyond either getting their stuff to Redbridge, but most students haven't got access to a car, or paying for a bulky waste collection, and most students are not flush with cash? We know that that the net result each year is there tends to be a lot of stuff just abandoned on pavements. Is it really cost effective to just let that happen rather than laying on some sort of extraordinary waste collection for that purpose?
Well, the supposition of my answer is that in certain cases that we would lay on some sort of extra collection. Because otherwise there'd be no point in having the conversation with Brooks University, because in the end what would happen is nothing would happen. So it's a matter of balancing out the various things. And I think we have to take a pragmatic attitude towards this, in my view. I mean, obviously we don't want to encourage fly tipping, and it actually costs more, frankly, to pick up individual fly tip waste than it does to have a coherent attack on the problem. And so that would be my core response to your question.
Thank you. Councillor Goddard, do you have a supplementary question regarding grass verge cutting?
Yes, please, my Lord Mayor. Thanks very much for the detailed response. Just a question about timing. The Cabinet Member refers to a review and assessment as to how things are going to go next year. When can we expect to know the results of that? Because it would be very useful to pass them on to various constituents. And what opportunities are there to contribute information towards that process?
Well, I'm always open, first of all, to information from any councillor in this chamber on the fascinating question of grass verge cutting, which I do realise raises strong passions across the city. In terms of the timescale, that work is already underway, obviously we're going into the autumn and winter now where we won't be doing grass verge cutting, so there is time to get this right, to look at all the issues. What is disappointing, I think, is that the county does not look like you'll be able to fund any more grass verge cutting than we currently have. So if we're going to have any more, and that's the view of the council as a whole, then it'll have to come through a budget bid and fight its corner along with everything else.
Councillor Landau Mills, do you have a supplementary question regarding the public realm of Cornmarket?
Thank you, Councillor Chapman, on your response. I'm just wondering if there's anything more tangible than sort of goodwill. Are there any plans afoot to do anything with local businesses? Because it is an eyesore and it detracts from the beauty of the city centre.
Well, the only thing we can do more is, this is a commercial matter. This is commercial waste we're talking about here. So the only way we could do more would be if the businesses were prepared to pay for more collections than they currently do, which, given the cost of living crisis and the pressure on them, I'd be very surprised if they wanted to. So I think we just have to live with it, really. I think we have to encourage them to put their waste out for the minimum length of time. But the notion that everybody can get up in the morning and put their waste out an hour before the collectors come round, as you do with perhaps your blue bin and your green bin and your whatever at home, that's not realistic because these businesses are not open at that time. So they are going to put their waste out for collection for the following morning, late afternoon or the evening, and I think that is just a fact of life.
Thank you. Councillor Morris, do you have a supplementary question regarding grass cutting around Marston?
Yes, please. Some of my supplementaries, although you're not allowed too many, have been answered by the previous questions. But I just wondered, with this new grass cutting regime, can you confirm that you do have the necessary equipment in place to cut and collect those areas that you deem suitable for biodiversity improvement? And do you have sufficient storage capacity to store the cut grass? And if there are problems with budgets and cuts, would the council consider perhaps allowing residents to manage their own grass verges?
Well, on the first point, as my answer makes clear, there are a number of verges in the city where, for very good biodiversity reasons, we are leaving the grass long, and when we do eventually cut them, we take the grass away in order to encourage that biodiversity to flourish. In other verges, there's not much biodiversity around, to be honest, and we will leave the grass there. So that's the kind of difference between the two. We do have enough capacity to do that, and when the review is complete and all the details are clear, we'll have to make a judgment about how many verges we wish to embrace under the biodiversity umbrella, if you like, and how many we think on balance don't contribute very much, and what we then will do about them. So I'm confident we have the equipment to do that balance, because we're already doing it anyway now.
Thank you. Now questions for the Cabinet Member for Zero Carbon and Climate Justice. Councillor Pegg, do you have a supplementary question regarding tree planting?
No, I don't.
Moving on to questions for Cabinet Member for Inclusive Communities and Culture. Councillor Miles, do you have a supplementary to either of your two questions to the lead member?
Yes, I do. Thank you. With respect to enforcement of single-use plastic for street trading, first of all, congratulations to the Council for its leading practice, plugging the hole in national policy related to this, which came in force this week, related to single-use plastic. But could we clarify, please, what are the steps in place to ensure that pavement licence holders will be following the national guidance on single-use plastic? And is there any scope for us to close any gaps in national legislation through amending our pavement licensing conditions? Thank you.
Is this for me? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Miles. I'm going to have to get back to the licensing officers about this, but I think you have made a lot of very important points, and actually I'd like to know more. So I was actually wondering whether when they go out on one of their October inspections, perhaps we should accompany them and brainstorm and put our heads together on this. So thank you.
Thank you. And with respect then to the second question, which is related to the helium balloons at St Giles Fair, my question is, what steps can be taken to ensure that traders at fairs are subject to the same standards on single-use plastic and helium balloons as street trader licence holders? Because there seems to be some inconsistency there, and I realise that there there are reasons why there's inconsistency, but there is a question as to what can be done to that.
I agree. I think we need clarification on this. And actually, the first time I went to the officers to talk about this, they said it was a matter for the Thames Valley Police. So I think, again, we need to sort of understand where the licensing officers fit in.
And finally, questions for the Cabinet Member for Housing. Councillor Smoten, do you have a supplementary question regarding HMO not being compliant?
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Jarvis, do you have a supplementary question regarding HMO licences?
I do, yes, Lord Mayor. So the first question really is, in the response in the papers, there's what appear to be two contradictory statements. The first says that the number of properties where a specific condition on antisocial behaviour has been included in a licence is not retrievable from the HMO licensing database. It then goes on to say there are currently 3,037 HMOs with an HMO licence and 4 of them have a specific condition related to antisocial behaviour. It'd be good to get clarity on which of those is true. The second question I have around this is what happens in practice when an antisocial behaviour condition is added to an HMO licence? And then finally, what is the threshold for particular problems being evidence at a particular property for it then to have an an antisocial behaviour condition added to the licence?
Okay, so the contradiction is because that first section was from a first draft of the answer. At first, it was thought that that detail wasn't retrievable, but it turned out that there was a whiz kid in the department that was able to do the number crunching and get the computer to spit the number out. So that number there in the second part of the question is correct. So there were 2 other parts of the question.
Yeah, sorry. The 2 other parts were what happens in practice when an antisocial behaviour condition is added to a licence, and what is the threshold for what's described as particular problems being evidence at a property for a condition to be added.
I'll write to you to let you know, because it's operational detail, and I want to give you a full answer, so I'll write to you with that.
Councillor Morris, do you have a supplementary question regarding cooperative housing projects?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. We've just been talking about density, and do you not think it would be cheaper to rent or buy housing if some facilities were shared in some properties? I mean, yeah, surely some of these could be shared facilities. After all, we talk about shared ownership. How about shared living?
So our priority is social housing, as we've set out here. Our priority are the hundreds of households that are on our housing register who bid for council properties or housing association properties as they become available, and who are allocated those properties depending on their need. And we have a very detailed allocations policy to assess that need, and people are banded accordingly. So that is how we allocate housing, that's how we prioritise housing. What people do, how they make their own arrangements, and how they want to live, whether that's communally or on their own or with whoever they like, that's really their business. But in terms of this council and how we allocate our homes, we follow the criteria set out in our allocations policy.
We will now have a break until 7:15 p.m. as the rest of the agenda is busy, and I would like to start item 18, the public addresses and questions, swiftly. Please can members return to the chamber ahead of this time, 7:15 p.m. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please be seated. We now come to the public addresses and questions. A total of 45 minutes is available for this item. David, can you please bring in the first public speaker? Our first question is from Kate Robinson regarding the citywide food plan. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to ask your question.
Hello, good evening. It's very short, it's not full 3 minutes. Currently in Oxford, there are a number of groups of allotment holders and community growing groups who are dedicated to growing and sharing local food with food banks and disadvantaged members of society. But this is all based on goodwill, huge commitment and non-paid volunteers. Do you plan to start seriously funding a citywide food plan so that allotments and community growing groups are properly funded, resourced and supported by paid Oxford City Council staff with a clear and urgent food security strategy?
Thank you. Please stay in the chamber to give Councillor Choi Makonge, Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parks, an opportunity to respond.
I have provided a written response, but I'm going to read it just for the record. Thank you for the address, and we certainly appreciate the great work undertaken by the allotment holders and local food growers, and recognize the important role you play in the community food system to help those most in need within the city. The scale of the problem requires a whole community food system response. We have been working with Oxfordshire County Council, the other district councils, and Good Food Oxfordshire to develop an Oxfordshire food strategy that is now in place. In tandem with this, we have been working with Good Food Oxfordshire and other stakeholders in the community food system to develop a food action plan that is due to come to Cabinet this winter. These plans recognize the need for the system to work together on the key areas such as these. The City Council, in partnership with Good Food Oxfordshire, developed a community food network at the outset of the pandemic that brought together food banks, community food ladders, community fridges, food kitchens, the local authority, and many others to share good ideas, opportunities, and work together on local issues. In addition to this, the Council has its Community Impact Fund, where community groups can apply for funding in relation to various projects. Further details are available on our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David, can you please bring in the second public speaker? Our second address is from Jane Wilson regarding the Court Place Farm allotments in Marston. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you. Not just Court Place Farm allotments, I should add, slightly wider than that. But is Council aware that Court Place Farm allotments, CIC, in Marston, struggles considerably more than other allotment sites in Oxford, as the large site, its 16 acres, is entirely open to the public with 4 rights-of-way entrances. It is effectively a public park, which benefits the wider community, but with none of the direct council support that a public park benefits from. There is no security, crops and tools are constantly stolen, trees need constant, expensive management. The site suffers from fly tipping and ancient rubbish, including bonded asbestos, and the city's council, sadly, is usually unable to give any help. Could Oxford City Council recognise that the point of allotments, which is growing crops for local consumption, cannot be successfully achieved when site maintenance in all its respects takes up so much time and energy of plot holder volunteers. Instead of support, the City Council is moving to increase site rents quite considerably. Is this fair? Could Oxford City Council make their extremely part-time allotment officer full-time and with a budget and authority to properly support allotments? Thank you.
Thank you. Please stay in the chamber while Councillor Choi Makonge, Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parks, an opportunity to respond.
I have again provided a written response, but I'm just going to read it for very quick. Thank you for your address, and we certainly recognize and value the work that the Allotment Association and allotment holders do. The Council communicates regularly with the various allotment associations and supports where it can. As you have mentioned there is an officer whose remit includes supporting green spaces and the allotments. The Council also provides support through various other officers' time, including those within property services who deals with leases, community safety, waste and recycling, amongst others. We recently supported the association by removing an old shed that might have had asbestos, but we do not seem to have been made aware of the additional bonded asbestos that you have mentioned. Chris and Caroline within the Green and Blue Services team would be more than happy to have a follow-up conversation in relation to this or more of the other issues that you mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. David, can you please bring in the third public speaker? Our third address is from Martin Hackett regarding the future of Bertie Park. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you. Good evening. Our campaign is fighting to protect the future of Bertie Park, a small recreation ground in South Oxford which our community has used for 85 years. On 21st of September, you placed a notice in the Oxford Times. This advertised your intention to appropriate 7,777 square metres of open space land for planning purposes in order to deliver the regeneration of Bertie Place Recreation Ground, and asked for objections to this sale. Could you clarify that this is an appropriation under Section 122 of the 1972 Local Government Act and not a disposal under Section 123? The recent consultation showed general satisfaction with our current playground. With the best basket swing in Oxford, the climbing frame is heavily used, the tunnel is very popular, but we could do with a few more swings, and the safety surface is, however, disintegrating, and the equipment could do with a lick of paint. Regeneration is a term chosen to persuade our community that any refurbishment of our recreation ground is conditional on the development going ahead. Your Parks Department say that there's a rolling play area refurbishment programme to try and keep all the facilities and equipment up to standard, including complete replacement of items as and when they wear out. Occasionally, new additional equipment is installed at a particular occasion if external funds are available. The condition of equipment in any play area can therefore be seen as a red herring in relation to any decision to develop Bertie Park. It was recently possible to refurbish the safety surface at Hinksey Park without building any houses at all. Regeneration is an Alice in Wonderland term you use to describe shrinking the recreation ground to 1/5 of its current size. Ox Place figures show the safety surface will be 68% smaller. There will be less equipment, most of it designed for toddlers. You do say that you consider our current recreation ground to be surplus to requirements. You not consider our current recreation ground to be surplus to requirements. This contradiction has led you to make a series of claims which are at best irrational and at worst dishonest. Tom Bridgman, Executive Director Development, says that although the site has been allocated for strategic planning considerations, it is not dishonest to say that the proposals will modernise the play space, and the re-provision of the play space is conditional on the development taking place. This is silly. If the development doesn't take place, there'll be no need to re-provide the play space or regenerate the recreation ground. Comments like this form the basis of a complaint currently being considered by the local government ombudsman. One of our campaign members has said that they feel patronised, misled, marginalised, undermined, disrespected and insulted by the people paid to serve us. Given that you intend to downsize our recreation ground, we're also concerned about the Environment Agency report. The 2011 to 26 Sites and Housing Plan stated that the stream that runs alongside the site should be protected by a 10-metre buffer and enhanced where possible. The 2036 local plan policy gives the area for development on Bertie Park as only 0.66 hectares, yet you intend to appropriate 0.78 hectares of land. That extra land comes from the riverbank. The Environment Agency recommend that the planning application is refused. One of their reasons is that the proposals require development on the riverbank, which will result in significant loss of riparian semi-natural habitat within or on the banks of the river, and could impact the hydromorphology of Redbridge Stream. They therefore say that the activity will require a flood risk activity permit, which is unlikely to be granted for the current proposal. The riverbank forms part of the new recreation area. According to the architect, the play area and mugger are designed to occasionally flood. They're water compatible. Your plan to sow this area with wetland mix. The artist's impression shows children running around and people picnicking on the riverbank. This will not be possible. Even if the artist's impression is only meant to be indicative, it should in some way relate to reality. In order to meet the requirements of the Environment Agency, how much smaller still will you have to make the new recreation ground? And if your aim really is to regenerate our park, you don't need to appropriate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stay in the chamber while Councillor Louise Upton, Cabinet Member for Healthier Communities and Planning, an opportunity to respond.
Martin and colleagues, thank you very much for coming to share your views with us this evening. The Bertie Place Recreation Ground has been identified for development in successive local plan documents for over 18 years, all of which have followed a process of consultation and public engagement prior to them being adopted. Any planning application that comes forward for redevelopment of this allocated site will need to set out how it accords with the policies within our local plan, and full consideration will be given to this through the planning process. As noted, the Council has placed a notice advertising the proposal for the appropriation of the land to a planning purpose under Section 122 of the Local Government Act 1972. Section 123 does not apply, as the Council is not proposing to dispose of the land. The period to comment on this notice is still open until 6th of October 2023. Oxford is desperately short of affordable housing and needs more homes. This site, along with a number of others, forms part of the Council's ambition to build more homes for households in housing need. And on this site, it proposes to do so through a modest development of 31 new affordable homes, alongside the re-provision of the play area and multi-use games area. Amendments to the current planning application are currently being considered to respond to the concerns expressed by the Environment Agency, and any such amended plans will be reconsulted on by us, the local planning authority, ahead of any report that comes into the planning committee, which is expected within the next few months.
Thank you.
David, can you please bring in the final public speakers? Our final address is by April Jones, Carl Wellenders, and Anne Machelan. Please excuse me for the pronunciation. Oxford Climate Emergency Centre. welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you. Oxford City is in the vanguard of climate action in many ways, and I think we can all be proud of that. From being one of the first councils to declare a climate emergency in 2019, to current projects on EV infrastructure and greener homes, and grassroots groups working to reduce their community's environmental impact, Oxford is home to an impressive wealth of environmental activity. But to many residents, a lot of that work remains unseen or peripherally visible at best. At Climate Collective Oxford, on whose behalf I speak today, we passionately believe that a physical climate action hub in a central location would provide a highly visible place for the general public to find and use, making climate action accessible to communities outside the green bubble and enriching the city's offer to its residents. We know that the majority of people in Britain count climate breakdown among their major concerns and are anxious to do their bit. Indeed, a headline finding of the 2019 Oxford Citizens' Assembly on climate change was a demand for more education and information provided for the wider public in Oxford to help them understand what they can personally do to help. A climate emergency centre would be a one-stop shop to provide clarity on the myriad ways to engage with this overwhelming challenge, and it would support and develop a sense of community in doing so. Any support that the Council could give this project would, I believe, be amply repaid in practical action and community wealth and empowerment that it would generate. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Carl Valentius. I'm a campaigner with Oxford Friends of the Earth. I've got 5 reasons why Oxford Friends of the Earth supports a climate emergency centre in Oxford. One, there's a real appetite for information. We know this from events we've run in the last year or so. People want to know about climate change, but particularly about solutions, what they can do, how they can get involved. So a central hub for that would be really helpful. 2, it would help people navigate the vast array of organisations in Oxford working on climate change, which can be confusing, but it could help. Having that information together would help people point people to the right place to meet their particular needs. 3, it would foster collaboration, bringing different organisations together, different perspectives, an exchange of ideas. Who knows what could come out of that? Things we haven't yet imagined, I hope. 4, it would help us reach communities and people that have so far not been so engaged in climate issues, which is always tough, but if it's well located in an accessible place, that could really help. And 5, it's an investment. By facilitating this centre, you would really catalyse action, which the City Council itself doesn't have capacity to do, but which work towards the Council's own climate goals. And I know resources are really tough at the moment, but any resources you can give to this would be a real investment in Oxford's response to the climate crisis and to our collective future. So 5 reasons to support the motion later on, and thanks for listening.
I am reading a statement from Catherine Chesson, Director of Community Action Group at Oxfordshire. Community Action Groups Oxfordshire, which we know as CAG, is a network support organisation that enables more than 100 community-led groups across the county to deliver climate action solutions that are relevant and specific to local needs. Oxford-based groups represent nearly a third of that network, and there is a need for a community-run space, such as a climate emergency centre, to allow groups to share information and engage with residents and visitors alike, in order to increase engagement on the defining issue of our time. A commitment from the Council for this space would be a commitment to local ideas as one lever in solving the structural issues of the climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statements. The response will be covered during the debate on motion 20B, so I hope you will be able to stay to watch that. That is the end of public addresses and questions. We now come to item 19A, outside organisation report for the Children's Trust Board. Can Councillor Choi Makonge, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parks, introduce the report?
Thank you very much, Your Lord Mayor. Before I introduce the report, I just want to make some correction in the report because it mentioned that Councillor Liz Brickhouse is the chair of the Trust Board. That's not the case. We had an ad hoc meeting last Tuesday, and it was chaired by the Interim Director of Children's Services, and the County Council have just appointed 2 representatives on the for the children. So we'll select the chair in due course. One thing I should also mention is that the Children Trust Board will focus their work, in addition to what is in the report, to help out, in the preparation of the inspection. As a result of the Ofsted, the inspection is going to be in 18 months' time. The report before you is a very good report, and it is one of the favorite responsibility I've had on the council, and I enjoy sitting on it. Basically, the report is just for your information, and you just asked to note it. It explains what the Children's Transport does, the composition, our plan, and as I've alluded to, is going to include what I've just said. More importantly, it also highlighting the attainment gap of the disadvantaged children. That is sad to read, especially if you consider Oxford as an academic city, but doing so badly, with disadvantaged children. Most importantly, we should recognize what the City Council actually does to help children and young people. So I gave a report for you to approve earlier, what we're doing to help out our young people. If you look at our thriving strategy, there's a lot of stuff there. If you look at our leisure provision, for example, free swimming, that we should probably market more. We do a lot of stuff like, you move, the discount scheme. So I'm very proud for what we are doing as a city. But collectively, I'll have a voice on the board to make sure that the voices of young people are heard, and probably it will be escalated to the Health and Well-being Board. Thank you very much.
Do any members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Smarton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As Councillor Makonge points out, since this report was written, Councillor Liz Brickhouse and indeed the entire Labour group, the entire Labour county group, have downed tools and abandoned their posts. I would ask the leader, does she recognise that this has caused unnecessary disruption when SEND provision is in crisis, and that by her colleagues throwing away all of their influence over this and indeed any other topic, the city's position and influence is left diminished?
Can we get to the question? Was there a question?
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I don't think it's my report.
Okay, would any other members like to speak? Okay, can we note the report? Thank you, the report has been noted. Okay, we now come to item 19B, scrutiny report. Can Councillor Lucy Pegg, Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, introduce the report?
Thanks, Libna. I'll quickly summarise what's in the written and much more extensive version of the report. Since the last full council, Scrutiny Committee and its various panels have considered a number of reports I will work in backwards order through some of the things that we looked at. First of all, thanks to Mike for chairing the last scrutiny committee in my absence. He ably led the committee through reports on out-of-hospital care provision, delivery of a new burial space, the Lees Pool and Leisure Centre, many of which we've just, in fact, all of which we've just discussed. We also agreed at that meeting to run the budget review group as has been done previously. Having not met in August, we did meet in July and looked at the annual safeguarding report and associated changes to the Council's safeguarding policy, the Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Pledge and the Citizen Experience Strategy. We did a lot of work digging into that Inclusive Economy Pledge and what it really meant in practice and how the Council could be encouraged to be more ambitious and clear about what that work actually meant. And on the safeguarding report, we asked for a further report to come back to scrutiny, looking at domestic abuse work, which we've already had thanks to some very speedy work from officers. The standing panels have also met many, many times since the last full council. I won't go through this in exhaustive detail, but some highlights are housing and homelessness, met in July and August looking at papers on refugee resettlement commitments, the tenant satisfaction survey, expansion of Housing First, and the housing and homelessness panel mini review of tenant involvement. Finance and performances met, looking at integrating performance reports, treasury management reports, scrutiny performance monitoring, and climate and environment has looked at things such as HRA energy efficiency projects, the citywide smoke control area declaration, and there's the net zero master plan. And finally, companies met in July and looked at reports on Oxford and ODS.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lucy Pegg. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Members, can we note this report? Thank you. The report has been noted. Motions on notice. Now we move on to the item 20, motions on notice. Please note that this item has a time limit of 60 minutes. Okay. Councillor Altaf Khan, could you please move your motion?
Lord Mayor, a point of order before we begin. Could you confirm that you are fully aware that motions A and D, the latter concerning the housing management system, were exchanged in the agenda due to an administrative mistake, and that you are declining to use your power to fix that error, thereby burying the housing management system far enough down the order that it is unlikely to get debated? Is it your intention to use the power of the Lord Mayor, which is conventionally politically neutral, to in all likelihood prevent debate on a matter that is politically inconvenient to the Labour group?
Yes, it is my decision to take them in the order that they were published.
In that case, in order to expediently proceed and get the motion debated, one would hope, we will decline to move motion A.
Okay, so we're going to move to motion 20B. Councillor Muddyman, could you please move your motion?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Climate change, driven by human activity, is pushing global temperatures ever higher, with the world now at 1.2 degrees of warming above pre-industrial levels. The disruption to the planet's climate systems is making extreme weather events such as heat waves, drought, flash floods, wildfires and storms more frequent and more intense. The situation is critical. Without immediate radical action to limit emissions, we will pass the tipping point at which the climate crisis becomes irreversible, leading to runaway climate breakdown and all the terrible consequences that will bring. We know we need to do more to lower emissions, yet the majority of emissions in Oxford are beyond the operations of the council. What can we do when our budget is limited and many policy decisions that would help to mitigate climate chaos are the mandate of central government or the county council? Well, one thing we can do as a council is to show leadership and to create conditions to enable community organisations to thrive. To significantly reduce our emissions as a city, we know we must gain even more buy-in from local residents and local businesses. And one way to do that is to create a highly visible, One way to do that is to create a highly visible, easily accessible Climate Emergency Centre. The Climate Emergency Centre, or CEC, is designed to engage the wider community to drive meaningful action on not just the climate crisis, but also on food poverty, fuel poverty, and homelessness. A CEC can help to build community resilience, develop strong mitigation and adaptation ideas, and build support networks for a future crisis. A CEC will enable communities to share resources, skills, and knowledge with other community groups. I'm going to stop there and keep this brief, given the busy agenda we have this evening. I note that we will be voting for the proposed amendment, and so I hope we'll be able to move very quickly on to a vote. I urge you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, do you wish to speak now or at the end of the debate?
I'll speak at the end.
Okay, there has been an amendment proposed to the motion. Councillor Railton, would you please move your amendment?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not sure that I do need to move my amendment because the Greens have accepted it, but I'm not sure.
Councillor Muddyman, do you accept the amendment? Yes, I can see you
Yes, I
nodding.
accept the amendment.
Thank you. We are now going to debate the proposed amended before we move to debate the motion. Are there any speakers on this proposed? Yeah, the amended motion. We're going to debate it now. So is there any speakers? Councillor Shaista Aziz. Who else is there? That's, sorry, okay, Councillor Shaista Aziz, would you like to proceed?
Yes, so I'd just like to start first of all by thanking the Councillor for bringing this motion to the Chamber and also to the public speakers as well. So when I was Cabinet Member for Inclusive Communities, a number of young people contacted me with this very idea of creating a climate emergency centre in East Oxford in particular, because it's the most diverse part of the city. So I'm pleased that the colleagues across the Chamber have also accepted this amendment, because it's really crucial that we work together. So my plea really is for this, I support this motion with the amendment, but my plea here is to ensure that any climate emergency centre in Oxford is reflective of the diversity of our city. There are many, many communities here in the city who understand the climate emergency better than most people, because it's impacting them and their livelihoods in the country of origin. And too often, the climate emergency is dominated by white, upper and middle class voices. And this is to the detriment of building a proper movement in our city, and young people and their voices are excluded. So I think this is an excellent idea. However, for it to work and for it not to become another exclusive space, because there's too many of those in Oxford, we need to make sure that it is as inclusive and as intersectional as possible, and that the voices of those people in those communities who are being hardest hit are heard first and foremost, and the ideas that they're presenting are worked on collectively by everybody here and beyond. And I'll just wrap up by saying we have many world specialists in our city who work on this crisis, and I think it's important that we do this work collectively rather than creating more and more silos. But I overwhelmingly do support this motion, and I thank you for bringing the motion here this evening.
Very good. Councillor Sanderson, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Councillor Muddyman as well for bringing this motion. I support the creation of a climate emergency centre in Oxford very much. As in many other places such as Preston, it would be a huge benefit to create workshops, talks and educate on how to adapt to food shortages, sharing energy saving tips, for example. And as we have just heard from members of the public, including Friends of the Earth, there are 5 reasons for supporting this, and we need to help and inform more people. Physical Centre is an ideal way of encouraging communities to take direct action to reduce their carbon footprint within a legal and secure scheme. There must be many suitable vacant properties in central Oxford available. Perhaps there are even spare rooms in this very building that could be used, for instance, that the fascinating archive exhibited next door may show us. There are, when I last counted, 10 large underused window boxes attached to the facade of the town hall that could perhaps be reassigned as mini allotments. I strongly recommend the Cabinet members for both zero carbon and climate change, as well as finance and asset management, to make an actual decision on a climate change, on a climate emergency centre, one way or another, as well as not just the warm words. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Landau Mills?
Yes, wholeheartedly support this motion. I'd like to emphasise the point, I think, about local activity and perhaps a slight change in focus. I mean, it's quite right. I really agree with we're trying locally to deal with things that are happening at a national, international level, and there's limited powers. One area is really looking at and capitalising on what I think is local resilience, and that actually means surviving extreme weather events. Now, we've seen on the west coast of Canada, they've had heat domes. I mean, they're going to take 3 forms. There's going to be flooding. I mean, it's plague, pestilence and things. And we're already in a climate emergency. I mean, we're having extreme weather around the globe. It's happening now. And the things that are going to hit us are flooding, occasional very cold weather, but also heat. And heat, I think, is a thing that's going to, within the next 5 years, we may have some very extreme hot weather, 45 degrees, 50 degrees, and a lot of people, old people, will die. And one of the things that we can do about that is, what are we going to do when we have 2 weeks of extreme heat? Are there centres where there's air conditioning, where there's protection? I mean, I'm anti-air conditioning, we don't want it, but I mean, it may be, if it's a matter of life and death, well then that's the thing to do. The other thing is also that it's been shown time and time again that extensive tree planting does help. I mean, it sounds a bit sort of soppy, sort of liberal thing, but actually it's a way of bringing down the trees around the temperature in urban areas very effectively. And we need to find ways of dealing with and pushing for this, because there are lots of obstacles of planting trees in urban areas. It's an extremely difficult thing to do because of the costs and the complexities of infrastructure. But we need to do it. It also massively helps with flooding as well, if the trees facilitate with those. So and these are also very tangible things a local centre can do, and that would help, I think, with connecting with the wider public who perhaps don't see it as, if I don't go on holiday. People say to me, so what if I go on holiday? That's not going to stop, climate change. But actually, if you're saying, well, actually, there's also one aspect, which is when we have this freak weather, we're trying to help people survive those things. Well, that is a very tangible thing. So I hope that can be included. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Councillor Susan Baum, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As possibly one of the only people in this council chamber who actually attended all of the Citizens' Assembly on climate change, and it was a really exciting place to be. I just wanted to kind of address that briefly. So, I mean, obviously, we were really delighted and proud to be the first city in the country to set up a Citizens' Assembly on climate change. Not the first Citizens' Assembly on climate change, but the first city to do it. And we did do it at a very early stage, and I think it was incredibly important and has fed enormously into the work that we are doing as a city council and as a city, along with many partner organisations, to actually deliver some real change for our city. And it's absolutely correct to say that one of the things that came out of that was a desire to be able to share information across the city. I think it was one of the points that lots of people there were saying is, I had no idea that there was so much information out there. You know, all these projects that are happening already, I just didn't know they existed. I would like to say I think we have done quite a lot of work since then to actually try and get some of those projects better known around the city, and it wasn't necessarily the intention of the Citizens' Assembly to set up a centre. It was all just about trying to make sure that some of that information went out. Having said all of that, I mean, I accept the motion, which and the campaign is for trying to bring all that together in one space, and I understand the networking advantages of all of that. But I also would just like to sort of strike a note of caution to Council, which is there is a reason why we haven't done this yet, and that's because it is quite difficult to try and find the right space and the right financing to make it happen. So I think we can absolutely take away the desire to do this, but I don't want people to think this is going to happen tomorrow just like that, because we have got to sort out all of those issues if we're going to make it happen. And I hope we can, because I do think there would be some advantages to doing that, but it would have to be part of, you know, any kind of budget process or negotiations with other organisations. And I think it's something that we will need to discuss plenty further before we will actually have a workable proposal. And this may be not the voice that people want to hear today, but I think it's important to be realistic about what the prospects are for getting this done really quickly, and realistic about what we will need to do to get it in place. I think many people in this council chamber, and hopefully other people out there, will be aware that as a council we're facing a challenging budget process. We are fortunate compared to many other councils because of some of the good budgetary decisions and financial decisions we've taken over many years, but even so we are facing a really difficult financial situation, so taking on any new commitments at this particular point in time is not a possibility. So I wanted to make that clear as part of this debate because I think it's an important point to undertake. And then the final thing I wanted to say was to support what Councillor Aziz was saying about making sure that you know, we do make any centre that we are able to provide a properly inclusive one. I think it is very important to make sure that everybody feels welcome there and it isn't just a club for all the existing clubs. So we need to be trying to make sure that we are doing this in a way that is actually bringing new people in, because that's the whole purpose of it if we are going to get this underway. So that's all I have to say, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Fantastic. Councillor Anna Relton, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. So yes, I would like to first thank April, Carl and Anne, who are probably, there they are, for coming to speak in support of this motion, and the Greens for putting it forward. So yes, I'm going to get the negative bits out of the way first. So yeah, there is the commercial property angle and there is the officer time angle. You know, it will not come as a surprise to any of you to know that we need to make a return on our commercial property in order to fund services throughout the city. With respect to officer time, investing large amounts of time setting up or supporting such a venture means deciding what to not spend time on, which we currently do, if that makes sense. So with ZCOP, which is the Zero Carbon Oxford Partnership, we made the explicit decision to organise those institutions and businesses that need to take action for this city to be net zero by 2040. We have a genuinely award-winning team of officers who support this partnership, as well as doing work across the energy, EV infrastructure, procurement, finance, biodiversity and retrofit spaces. However, Oxford is also blessed with a huge amount of groups who are keen to tackle the climate crisis in any way that they can. There are genuinely thousands of people in Oxford who understand the need for action, who join existing groups, start their own or go it alone. And it is indeed the very reason that I'm a councillor. The work of these groups has enabled a huge amount of progress in this city already. I will just shamelessly rattle off a very non-complete list of the great work that the sort of Oxford third sector, sort of voluntary and charity sector, has already done in this space. So, you know, there's the ongoing air quality work with Oxford Friends of the Earth, and the reason that we have an increasingly large network of sort of citizen-owned particulate matter sensors across the city, which is great. There's the work that the work on the Botley Road businesses by the Low Carbon West Oxford group. I must say, coming into this role, it was incredibly confusing. The sort of low carbon West Oxford. I think there's like North low carbon Oxford. There's every single possible permutation. It was very confusing. There's also the years of tireless work on decarbonising homes done by Rosehill and Iffley Low Carbon, which contributed to the like multi-million-pound Clean Heat Streets heat pump scheme that launched in Rosehill this year. The Low Carbon Hub itself has also done truly innovative work on renewable energy, community energy, and indeed community-owned renewable energy, with a view to, in their own words, a smart, flexible electricity system of the future of Oxfordshire that benefits everyone. You know, as we sort of make the transition to net zero, it is super important that we don't just rebuild the same system that we've had before and actually do a better job of making things work for everybody. You know, there's also, you know, Share Oxford, owned by Oxford, the Oxford Urban Wildlife Group, Friends of Bly Valley. I could like go on and on, but you know, this space is very rich and very diverse. So yeah, coordinating these groups and creating a centre based around climate action is a noble and necessary goal. And as you have said, something that has worked well in other towns and cities. It'd be a way of breaking down silos, sharing information and building capacity for climate action in the city. So we certainly do support the objective here. I think it's a good idea, but for the reasons already stated, we cannot provide a building nor commit huge amount, but not zero amounts of office time. I do, however, hope we have a thriving climate emergency centre in the city soon.
Thank you very much. Can we also have Councillor Edward Turner, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be brief, just to pick up on a couple of the points in debate. I certainly support the motion as amended, and thanks for accepting the amendment. In terms of the town hall that was mentioned, and I have to say many spare rooms is really quite a stretch. I mean, since we moved across from St Aldate's Chambers, the town hall has become it's become the key place where officers meet in order to do their work. It's working, I think, okay, but it's pretty tight, and I don't think we're in a position to accommodate a centre in the town hall. We are, though, looking at the town hall and future developments here, what we might be able to do, but I suspect our focus may well need to be on our own staff and our own workforce. I think it's not for me to advise the people putting forward this excellent idea. I think a partnership approach looking around Oxford would work well. Organisations like Makespace we've partnered effectively with in the past, and there might be some mileage in that sort of conversation. And certainly, if I can help make introductions, I will. There might be companies. We are, as a city, home to a number of companies who are really at the forefront of innovation in this space. They might see it as part of their sort of corporate social responsibility, and of course also the university might have an interest. So those might be some areas to look at. And as I say, as a council, I think we've got the convening power that we can potentially use, but as has been explained, there's a limit. I mean, the other thing, just to perhaps be upfront with people about, there is some sensitivity here. There are a number of community and religious groups over many years have said to us, where is our dedicated space? Please, can we have one? And sadly, we're not in a position to help as we might wish. I think that then just managing that is something we have to be mindful of, that when we're talking about our own premises, other people will say, well, hang on, we have been asking for a long time, and we haven't been able to meet that. So I think we're just being honest about this, but also honest about the opportunities. The other bit, and this is really speaking as a ward councillor, is just the importance of activities outside any centre. So Rosehill and Iffley Low Carbon, which has had a terrific journey, and which is part of the network of community action groups, and many people will know about it, has just done such amazing things. And actually they would reflect, I'm not sure I'd be as harsh as this, but they say, particularly after the first couple of years, they wanted to be really embedded in the whole community. And so many projects now involve the whole community, whether it's youth groups, whether it's different residents groups, It's absolutely amazing. This Saturday there's going to be a repair cafe in the community centre. That's going to be really great. There's been tree planting galore. It was fantastic sort of seeing the kids literally traipsing off the football pitch after a fairly miserable game against Headington, and then being brought to mulch and water their tree, because that was a tree which was planted by the Youth Football Club. The heat pump project's been mentioned, and then there's been the opportunity for people in our community to visit each other's houses and see some of these innovations. And so I suppose my other thought, and I don't want to sort of, please don't think it's sort of patronising or in any way wrong, but I hope the environmental movement in Oxford, in focusing on a centre, doesn't lose the focus on our sort of many diverse neighbourhoods, because loads of this you can only do with people where they're to be found and where they live. But good luck to those involved, good luck with the motion, and happy to help in the ways that we've set out.
Are there any other members who wish to speak on this motion as amended? Councillor Susanna. That's all.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can confirm that a lot of community groups keep coming and asking us to find them premises. And it's very sad that we can't do that, but we can't, obviously, for the reasons that people have given. But I wonder if it might be possible to find somewhere where they could have a meanwhile use. I don't know if that's been looked at, but I hope we can look at that. Thanks. Should I just explain what that is? Because there might be some people who don't know. That's if there's like a shop, for instance, that's temporarily empty, and if we can find the people who own it and ask them if we can use it for a year or 2 years or something, then that would be what we technically refer to now as a meanwhile use.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hosnia Jaffrey Umabiri.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I attended some of the Cowley Climate Collective campaign meetings. I know that some others did as well. And yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic idea. It's great to have the support of everyone here. On Shaista's point, Aisha Abbasi, who I incidentally interviewed on a Migrant Voices series that's on the BBC Sounds app, leads a Muslim young woman-led group called Help the World Oxford, who are also part of the Cowley Climate Collective. So I think it'd be really, really brilliant to make sure that if any future plans, once they start taking shape, even using some meanwhile spaces, that those women's voices are really heard. They do some great work in Oxford, and it would be great to involve them from the get-go. Thank you.
Okay, any more? Councillor Aijaz Rahman.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. On Cowley Collective, they're a group of young ladies, including Aisha Abbasi, and they've done lots of work in Cowley. Unfortunately, just to highlight, we arranged for them to have a session at the Asian Culture Centre. So they had the space, but unfortunately they had to cancel because they never had enough volunteers.
Councillor Kerr, would you like to sum up?
Yes, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your contribution to a really kind of constructive and interesting debate. I think there's a few templates that we can look at for other cities, which have come up. There's a spectrum of options where the council looks at relieving business rates only, and that's being done alongside commercial properties, which I've now learned is called a meanwhile use. I gather there's one of these centres is in an old William Hill, and one of them's in a Nat West. From that end of the spectrum to a sort of fully supported and funded space, which it sounds like may not be practical. But I suppose what I would say is that here we've learned that there are a lot of people who support this idea. There's a lot of ideas and kind of concepts and other groups that are already doing work that we can hopefully pull together, and whilst the City Council may not be able to provide premises, it can provide a convening role and legitimacy and more exposure to more people that can get involved in this. And I suppose I'll just finish by saying, I won't finish. I will support what Councillor Aziz and Councillor Brown said, and I think other people mentioned that it's going to be really essential to make sure that we have an intersectional climate emergency centre, so and multi-age as well. And I think we can hopefully work successfully together to deliver something that could be really exciting if we can make that happen. Finally then, I will just say, still not finally, so I spoke to Lewis Climate Emergency Centre, and they said that the way that it was working is that, they were able to deliver practical advice for residents, they can help with energy, other climate change concerns, businesses come there, the council can share what it's doing, organisations can ensure that they don't work in silos, you can hold community events and get ideas from the rest of the community about what all of those other categories should be doing, so really making it a space to listen to people. And so I think all of those ideas are things that other people in this chamber have mentioned, but it is already working in some of the other climate centres, so hopefully this motion supported, if it is supported, can really make Oxford yet again a flagship leader in this area, which I think we should be proud to recognise that whilst there's a lot more to do, the city has managed to do that. So finally then, it also sounds like there is already existing volunteer support and quite a lot of enthusiasm for this project, so hopefully we can take this forward with the city as a convening role and supporting, as some of the other models that have worked in other cities do. Great, thanks.
Councillor Muddyman, would you like to sum up the debate?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone in the gallery and all the people who've spoken. I'm hoping this is going to pass unanimously, fingers crossed. So, yeah, thank you, everyone.
Okay, is the motion as amended agreed? All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion as amended has been carried. Item 20C, freedom from fear for our shop workers. Councillor Mundy, could you please move your motion?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I'm moving the motion unamended, but with a minor change to the action points, which has been communicated to officers already, and I believe deserves to be supported by Council. So I'll make those points so everyone's aware of what that is. The third action point remains the same, and that is that as a council we would pledge to lobby the Police and Crime Commissioner for Thames Valley, Matthew Barber, to do more to combat shoplifting, as well as the abuse and violence perpetrated against shop workers. Then there would be an additional fourth point that follows after that, which would be to lobby police and relevant authorities to investigate the causes of increases in shoplifting. While many reports have involved organised gangs, it should also be noted that an holistic approach to some perpetrators will be more constructive than a purely punitive or carceral one. And that's been submitted in writing as well. So I'll continue. So Councillors Jarvis and Rule kindly paid close attention to the motion and did suggest a constructive amendment. But upon discussion, I did choose to make the edit as above. Now, it is true that, of course, all too often prison is accepted as the only response and punishment, and that is something that can be counterproductive, which is why I agree with that sentiment. But as is pointed out in the motion, we live at a time of enormous stress and financial hardship for many people. People are finding it harder than ever to access essential mental health care as well. As pointed out by Hosnia very eloquently earlier, poverty levels are at historic highs, including in Oxford neighbourhoods. And undoubtedly the cost of living crisis is continuing to hit many people hard. Our retail workers included, of course, often being among the lowest paid. It's important, however, not to assume direct causation on shoplifting, which is why I felt the need to make the edit rather than accept the amendment. We rightly pay close attention to reports of essential items being stolen, and it is shamefully true that some parents are unable to afford nappies and baby formula, but we cannot make judgments as to who is responsible for individual offences. Usdaw, the Union of Shop Distributive and Allied Workers, has been running its Freedom from Fear for Shop Workers campaign since 2002. The targeted campaign has worked with the police and government to protect retail workers from violence and abuse. This campaign is needed now more than ever. Usdaw's Freedom from Fear survey in 2022 showed that 3/4 of shop workers had experienced verbal abuse. Usdaw found that almost half of retail workers had been threatened by a customer in the 12 months to March 2023, and 8% had been assaulted. 41% feel anxious about work, all because of high levels of abuse, threats, and violence. There's, of course, been a great deal of recent press coverage about retail crime, something that has impacted us here locally in Oxford, and very recently in nearby Yarnton. Complaints about the police response and the increasing burden of crime and abuse are consistent across the board. Let's ensure that we are giving our full attention to the human impact of the news and the statistics. We have a local Labour Party member. He's also our LGBT plus officer for Oxford Labour, called James Taylor. He very kindly contacted me and shared some of his experiences. He's a duty manager at a major grocery store chain in Oxford. Troublingly, James said that verbal abuse is very common, seemingly something that he has got used to. Let's not forget that verbal abuse can be assault, and no one deserves to endure it at work. James also told me that he and his colleagues have little faith in the police response to retail crime, with crimes reported to 101 often not being followed with a visit from officers. Police officers, not council officers. Often little is done in response to instances of alleged assault, sometimes even including those that resulted in injury to the shop worker. Understand, members, that I do not bring this motion to silo the abuse of shop workers above others. Our emergency service workers, health workers, public transport and public service workers, and all others who face abuse and violence while doing their job must be supported. But today, please join me in lending our support to our shop workers and to the Usdaw Freedom from Fear campaign, showing that this council will use our voice to back our shop workers and stand up for their safe places of work and for work free from abuse and violence. In 6 weeks' time, the Respect for Shop Workers Week takes place. That's from the 13th to 19th of November. And it's an important part of the Freedom from Fear campaign. I trust that the week will be used as a chance for our council to show support for the campaign. Thank you, members.
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Shaista Aziz, do you wish to speak now or at the end of the debate?
I'd like to speak now, please, Lord Mayor. So I just want to start by thanking Councillor Edward Mundy for bringing this motion to the Chamber this evening. You're highlighting some very, very important points, and let's not forget that this issue doesn't just impact one individual or people who work in shops, it also impacts a wider community. And as the City Council's Cabinet Member for Safer Communities, I've had a number of people contact me over the past few months in particular, talking about how intimidated they felt going into specifically local shops in local neighbourhoods and seeing people stealing in a very brazen and unapologetic way while they have been busy just trying to buy dinner for their family. And it's really unnerved a lot of people. And I just want to make it clear that this issue has been raised continuously by myself and City Council officers with senior Thames Valley police officers. We continue to raise this in our monthly meetings as well. And what we have been told is that community police officers and others are engaging with stores, are also engaging with communities where people are feeling this fear. And specifically, there was some casework that Ed and I both received in Rose Hill, and a community police officer did go to that store and did have a conversation with the management there to provide them with some further guidance on what they can do to stay safe. I think it's also really important, and I do thank Councillor Edward Mundy for highlighting the fact that we cannot make a direct correlation between the shocking and devastating increase in poverty, which has been further fueled by the cost of living crisis, because as we know, people who are struggling to survive are not criminals. They do not go into shops and steal. Overwhelmingly, the data across the country shows that organised criminal gangs are involved in going into shops up and down the country and stealing particularly food items and selling it on the black market. And again, I think it's important for us to emphasise that here this evening, because we don't want to stigmatise people who already feel marginalised. I think what I really want to wrap up by saying is just to assure everyone here, the Council takes this issue very seriously. We are raising it continuously with Thames Valley Police. Like I said, it's on the monthly meeting agenda. I'm the Council's representative on the Police and Crime Panel. I was at the meeting a few weeks ago. I raised it there as well, as did other members of that panel. So this is very much an issue that is alive in terms of us doing all we can to ensure that we get clearer answers from the police. But this is not just a policing issue, it goes beyond that. And I just say that, I fully support the trade union involved in this campaign, and indeed I have been invited to see some of their work in shops across the city. And the shops, particularly in our council estates, are, community hubs. And we need to make sure that they continue to be so, and that they're vibrant places where everybody can go and they can feel safe, and they don't feel intimidated just by trying to find the food they need to provide food for their families and everyone else. So thank you very much for this motion.
I understand that the amendment to the motion from Councillor Jarvis has been withdrawn. Is that correct? Excellent. Okay, so we are going to debate the motion. All those who are would like to speak, please raise your hands. In the order that we saw them, I'm going to go through. Councillor Susan Brown, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and I really would like to thank Edward and Shyster for bringing this motion to Council. I think this has been one of the issues that has come up an awful lot for me talking to constituents. People are really concerned about the shoplifting that's going on in our local neighbourhood shops. And the consequences of it. And they unfortunately need to be aware of that, because we know that many supermarket chains up and down the country are looking at areas where they've got the highest numbers of shoplifting offences and wondering whether they can really afford to keep those shops open. And that is a real worry, because we know we're going through a time of very high costs of living. And it is precisely a lot of these neighbourhood supermarkets that people are relying on in order to make sure that they can feed their families as cheaply as possible. So I have very many concerns from that perspective. I also obviously have concerns for the safety of many of my constituents who are shop workers, and many people in our city do work in retail, and we are very grateful and thankful for them. During the pandemic, we realised quite what key workers they absolutely were, and it is really distressing in the extreme to hear about some of the abuse and assaults that people are suffering. And I would encourage people, by the way, if you are a retail worker, to join us door and get the support of a trade union behind you, because they're an extremely good trade union, and this motion does make that clear as well. But I also wanted to address the issue of community policing, because It is a massive problem at the moment. The underfunding of policing, effectively the national defunding of policing by the Conservative government over the last decade has been extraordinary. And our police force has been hollowed out. And I will take as an example the community policing for my area. And actually, we are supposed to have a team in our area of 4 PCSOs and 2 police officers. And currently, we have 1 PCSO and 1 police officer out of the 6. And that is it. And that 1 police officer is mostly seconded away from the team, covering other areas. And that 1 PCSO is basically left to be the community policing. So when the local shops call the community police to respond to any concerns that they might have, they're not going to get a response. And that is the experience of most shopkeepers, I'm afraid, in this city at the moment. And I want to be very clear, I'm not blaming the police officers on the ground. The problem is they're not on the ground. The problem is that there are not enough of them, and they are not able to support communities in the way that I know that they would like to do. I was talking to someone at the weekend who very specifically was complaining about the lack of policing, the lack of community policing, and then she went on to say, my son's a police officer, and he finds it really distressing that he is not able to help the communities that he knows need his help. And particularly, she was talking about the problems of shoplifting and real concerns about her local supermarket potentially closing down. So just to sort of sum up where I'm coming from here, I think we have got a very real problem, which I know Shaista's been raising really regularly with the Police and Crime Commissioner, to try and make sure that these issues are addressed where they need to be, which is at that level, and trying to get community policing working again. But I do think that it's very important that we... well, sorry, no one's stopped me. It's really important that we do take this seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross Smith, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm going to keep mine brief. I'm going to believe we have to keep to 3 minutes, and I'm hoping that these speeches are going to be timed. I'm looking around the chamber. I'm just wondering how many people have worked in a shop at some point. That's great, on the cafe. So you know what I'm talking about. I've actually had personal experience of actually being smashed in the face by a shoplifter while making an arrest, in fact, a citizen's arrest. In fact, that's how I lost that tooth, and I had a gold tooth covering that one too. That was a very, very unnerving experience as such. And it affected my shop co-workers. I mean, I was the manager of the store at the time, but actually had started, in fact, as just an ordinary shop assistant in that shop. It is horrible. And I have to say, from personal experience, it's not something I'd want anybody else to go through. It really is awful. However, it did not put me off actually challenging people when they do shoplift, because I think it's so important. And I understand now why recommendations are coming down to all sorts of shops not to do it, because it has got, the violence towards shop workers has got worse. Whether it's because we haven't got more police on the streets or not, I don't know. But I would say it is actually quite often linked to the cost of living that we have seen going downhill in respect of people having enough money to buy the items that they need. It's not just food, it's other items, it's shoes, it's nappies, it's socks for the children for school. School uniform is so expensive. But I do support this motion and just hope that we can keep to 2-minute speeches so we can get to the next motion on the agenda, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sanderson, please.
Again, very briefly, and thank you for bringing this motion, Councillor Mundy and Aziz. I have a close relation who works for one of the major grocery supermarkets in Oxford, and he is constantly threatened every day when he goes to work. His shift finishes at 11 o'clock at night. He says that the people who come in and steal things are not, although I do take your point and that there are many people who are in great need, his experience is that the people who are stealing from the shop are those who are fueling habits because they take alcohol, they take tobacco, and when he chases them out of the shop at risk to himself, they go around the corner and come back 10, 15 minutes later. So there is a complete lack of support for him when he calls the police. There's no one there. So it's good to know that there is such engagement going on, that you're involved with community policing. He's thinking about moving on and leaving his work in the supermarket. Of course, it's very poorly paid and at high personal risk to himself. So thank you. I support the motion.
Thank you for sharing. Councillor Alex Hollingsworth, please.
Thank you. I'm relying on officers to time me like we all do. 4 very brief points. I think just picking up on that last one, it's worth reflecting there are now essentially no rehab beds at all anywhere in the NHS in Oxfordshire. We all know that treatment for addiction requires effort and time and money, and those resources are currently not available. The 3 points I was going to make off the bat, as it were. The first is that we've talked about retail workers, as you've just done, Councillor Sanderson. Of course, a lot of retail workers are working in family businesses. They're not part of chains. They don't have the protection. So it's the family livelihood as well as the business, as well as the job. It can also be the home. Having that invaded in a criminal way is particularly difficult and particularly challenging. Some of those shops are very marginal in their profitability. Being unable to prevent acquisitive crime, shoplifting or whatever, I see it's sometimes called looting when it turns out of hand in particular. That can be hugely damaging. That's a loss of self-esteem, a loss of a job, a loss of a facility for a community. And my slightly facetious point, but I couldn't let this day go past without reflecting on the fact that the government has announced that village shops are now effectively illegal. 15-minute cities are to be banned. What's more, 15-minute city than the local shop. So the government is stamping down on the local shop, the local pub and the local church. Will have none of that, move it all somewhere else. But the serious point about that is that the rhetoric of this government about policing, which is ever stricter laws, but never come with the resources to do something about them. And the dichotomy, the difference between the kind of frankly conspiracist nonsense which they've been spouting in Manchester today, what they've been saying, people like Suella Braverman, our so-called Home Secretary, have been saying the criminalisation of people fleeing persecution, and ever escalating rhetoric on that, and compare that to the defunding, and that is the right word, the defunding of community policing, the removal of police and the risk of prosecution from whole swathes of crime. Bear in mind, only 1 in 100 shoplifting offences even involve some kind of contact between the shoplifter and the police, let alone a conviction. You can see the challenge that's in front of us. So for all those reasons, I urge everyone to support the motion, and I hope that was within 2 minutes. Thank you.
Lord Mayor, on grounds of clear consensus in the Chamber, I propose that we move to a vote.
No, there's other people who want to speak. Would you like to move?
I move that we proceed directly to a vote.
Okay. Okay, who agrees to go to a vote? Those against? Those against? And any abstentions? Okay. Okay, so we have to carry on. Councillor Mike Rowley, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, Of course, in the spirit of Ed's amendment of his own motion, we're not here endorsing the things that some of us have seen, like putting security tags on maternity products, or even, as I saw in a local supermarket in a student area of Oxford, putting security tags on the baskets, because apparently there's been a little fad among inebriated 18-year-olds in stealing the baskets rather than any of the items that might go in them. But on a more serious point, we must say that this is a problem that has existed long before the current cost of living crisis, long before the pandemic. Astor has been running the Freedom from Fear campaign since 2002, and they began it because something like that was demanded by their members, not because the General Secretary just made it up out of his head. A friend of mine who works in a supermarket was seriously assaulted at the beginning of last month by a shoplifter and ended up in A&E. In my own ward, elderly people tell me that they're frightened of going to the local shops in Underhill Circus because they have to run the gauntlet of sometimes of threatening men around the shops. It is a serious matter, and it's one that the government is completely failing to deal with. As in Wood Farm that Susan represents, the local criminals and antisocial elements, who are a small minority, but they have noticed that community policing has declined, that the police are often not around, and they have acted accordingly by moving their activities to our local neighbourhoods, to those shops which are more likely to be of marginal profitability, as some have said, but also very vital services for local people, particularly the elderly and the disadvantaged. The government responds with ever more laws and ever fewer police to enforce them. It also responds with cuts to services such as mental health and complex needs, which are, I am sure, behind some incidents that have occurred in shops. A year or so ago, I brought my fellow councillors and I brought the superintendent to see what was going on at Underhill shops.
If you can wrap up kindly.
Yes, thanks. And he was involved in immediately saw an altercation involving somebody who should have had the support of an NHS service as well as merely intervention from the police.
Then, thank you.
Therefore, it's vital that we devote resources to this, and I fully support.
Councillor Chris Jarvis. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, obviously, to both Councillors Mundy and Aziz for proposing the motion. I also just want to briefly thank, as many others have done, Astor for their long-running campaign on the issue of violence against shop workers, but I think particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, where I think they've been astonishingly effective of ramping this issue up the national conversation and agenda. And I think it's worth remembering this is a brilliant example of campaigning trade unionism from an excellent trade union that has been fighting for its members for a very long time. I also wanted to thank the Labour Group for agreeing to change the text, because I do think the words that have been added, though small, are important. I think just it's been alluded to in some of the conversation so far, but I think it's important to kind of explicitly note it that why I think that the change in the wording matters and why including a note that a purely punitive and carceral approach to tackling shoplifting is ineffective. I mean, we know, I hope we in this chamber share the view that often a kind of punitive, carceral, law and order, aggressive type approach to criminal activity is ineffective, especially when it comes to non-violent criminal activity. And we know that there are very complex social causes for lots of criminal activity, and that the criminal justice system is anything but just, and that we need a holistic approach to tackling many of these issues, particularly because we know that a punitive and a carceral approach to crimes such as shoplifting lead often to recidivism. And what you end up with is not tackling the problem, but repeat offending over a longer period of time. So the reason that we initially proposed the amendment, and thankfully some of the wording has changed to reflect the kind of spirit of it, is that what I was nervous about when I first read this motion is that the Tory PCC, taking this as the City Council's consent for a campaign of aggressive campaigning to lock up the poor for nicking a loaf of bread they can't afford, contributing to the, I think I've got a little bit more time, contributing to the demonisation that we've said that we don't want to do in this chamber. So I'm glad that we've made clear as a council that we actually need a much more holistic approach to tackle the issue, but that we stand firmly and strongly behind the shop workers in our city, that they need to be able to work safely with freedom from fear, from violence, and so we fully support the motion, and thanks again to Councillors Mundy and Aziz for proposing it.
Thank you, Councillor Jemima Hunt.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to raise, I think it's a very important motion, and thank you for raising this, because I think shop workers and those that we go and talk and, you know, engage with in the shops who are serving us are actually the most vulnerable. And I don't know about you, but I think all of us now find shopping for food in this country stressful. If any of you were able to get away this summer, when you go to France, the price of food is the same as it was last summer. Or when you go to the shops here in England, the price of food is different. It's increased in a week. We also have something which I think we've touched upon in various of the debates this evening, which is food scarcity, and it's coming and it's very real. And what we know when we left the European Union 7 years ago is that we left our food supply chain. We import at least 70% of our food from Europe. Immediately food prices went up. We've now had a Tory government for 13 years, inflation, and we now have climate change, which means that those floods in Greece that have happened over the summer, 25% of the areas in which food is now grown are underwater. There's going to be no olives coming from that region in Greece. So what I'm trying to do is connect up the dots. We're going to have a climate change centre where we're going to need to talk about food. We're going to have allotments across Oxford where we're going to have to be growing food for all of our local kids, for all of the local key workers. And this is something that we all need to be talking about, and actually the shop workers are the ones that are bearing the brunt really of what's a big political and geopolitical issue which isn't going away. Thanks.
Our time has elapsed, so we need to move straight to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion has been carried. Thank you. We now come to the end of the meeting. Thank you all, to every single one of you in attendance. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 27th of November at 5 p.m. Thank you.